TV. How did I get delivered here? Somebody tell me, please. Cause this whole world is just really confusing me. Clouds as mean as you've ever seen. Ain't a bird that knows your tune. Then a little voice inside of you whispers, kid, don't sell your dreams so soon. Everywhere you look, everywhere you go, there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, everywhere you face, somebody who needs you. La 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 la. Whatever happened to the good old days? Talking to friends for hours, swore it'd never go away. Now I'm feeling a little crazy, trying to fit in with the scene. Cause how do you know where you're going if you really don't know who you've been? Everybody eventually says that they're as lost as you. So everybody shout it together. Hey, don't sell your dreams so soon. Everywhere you look, everywhere you go, there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, everywhere you face, somebody who needs you. Everywhere you look, everywhere you go, there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. There's a heart everywhere you look, yeah. When you're lost down there and you're all alone, a light is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look. Everywhere you look, everywhere there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, everywhere you face, somebody who needs you. Everywhere you look, yeah. When you're lost down there and you're all alone, a light is waiting to carry you home.
Miami University maintains a strong reciprocal relationship with the Miami Tribe of Oklahoma.
Our land acknowledgement exists to reaffirm the Miami people's deep connection to their homelands and our commitment to each other.
The specific wording in Miami University's land acknowledgement is a result of an intentional,
collaborative process with the Miami Center and with review and approval from the Miami Tribe of Oklahoma.
As we begin, we'd like to share this land acknowledgement with you.
Miami University is located within the traditional homelands of the Miami and Shawnee people,
who, along with other indigenous groups, ceded these lands to the United States in the First Treaty of Greenville in 1795.
The Miami people, whose name our university carries, were forcibly removed from these homelands in 1846.
In 1972, our relationship between Miami University and the Miami Tribe of Oklahoma began and evolved into a reciprocal partnership,
including the creation of the Miami Center at Miami University in 2001.
The work of the Miami Center serves the Miami Tribe community and is dedicated to the revitalization of Miami language and culture and to restoring that knowledge to the Miami people.
Miami University and the Miami Tribe are proud of this work and of the Miami students who have attended Miami since 1991 through the Miami Heritage Award Program.
Good evening, everyone. Is this on? Can you hear me? All right, awesome. Hey, thank you for braving the weather, right? Folks who aren't afraid of the rain. For those who don't know me, my name is John Ward. I use he, him pronouns. and I serve as director for the Student Counseling Service here at Miami University, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our speaker for tonight. Just before I do that, I wanted to give some quick reminders to us all about some of the services that we have here at Miami University when you need help and support. Actually, one of the things that I'm really excited about this talk tonight is that we're going to have the opportunity to talk about the fact that you don't always need some of the things that I'm about to talk about, but I just wanted to let you all know that when you need us, we're here and we have your back. So, first of all, I wanted to mention that Miami has a whole system of support services for our students. It's not just contained to counseling. We have an office of wellness, we have an office of health, and we all work together to support the mental health needs of our students, the emotional needs that folks have. We have offices that are filled with dedicated individuals who are ready to support any of the types of concerns that you may have, whether it is on the physical side of things, the emotional side of things, the education side of things. It really doesn't matter. When you reach out to one of our offices, we will make sure you get the help and support that you need. Now, obviously, I represent the Student Counseling Service, and whereas I'm not going to talk about all the things that we have, one of the things that I do want to mention is that you don't have to hesitate to reach out to us even if you just have a question about where you might start with services. That's one of the things that we oftentimes help students with, that even when they don't want to take a deep dive into counseling, sometimes it's just a question about, I'm feeling this way, or I have a friend that's feeling this way, or a partner or a family member, and you just want to get some insight. We're here to support you as a student counseling service around those emotional needs that you might have as you're navigating through college. There's all sorts of things that we offer at the Student Counseling Service. It's not just designed for individual counseling, which we offer plenty of, but it goes so far beyond that. And again, when students are reaching out to our office, what we'll do is have a conversation with you about the types of things that we offer and what might meet your needs. And even beyond the Student Counseling Service, we have things that you can try on your own at any point in time, because not everyone wants to take, again, that deep dive into counseling. So we have things such as Well-Track Boost, where you can do counseling-related activities and programs on your own, from your phone, from your computer, anytime you want, and help you out that way. We have Togetherall, which is another program that links you with other college-age students all around the country who have similar concerns that you might have, and then you get to talk with them in an online format. And then we have the Hope Line, which has been around for years and years and years, which is available specifically for Miami students to call when they have an emotional need or concern and they want to talk to someone 24/7. There have been students that have called all hours of the day. There's been students that have called in-state, out-of-state, out of the country. No matter where you are, that Hope Line is there to serve you when you have needs. So without further ado, I'm going to read a quick bio of our speaker. All right. So Johnny Sirpilla is an entertainer, entrepreneur, not an entertainer. Sorry.
Well, I'm going to try that. They'll determine if I'm an entertainer.
Entrepreneur, author, speaker. He comments on the importance of managing thoughts to develop meaningful professional and personal relationships and reframing each challenge in your life as an opportunity for self-development and growth. One of his passions is addressing college students, young professionals, and emerging leaders to discover the power they must develop for their personal brand. Johnny is owner of Encourage LLC and retired president and chief business development officer of Camping World and Good Sam. He graduated from Miami University with a bachelor's degree in accounting and a special interest in psychology, and received his master's in organizational behavioral management from the University of Phoenix. He also received certification from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School in Executive Presidents and Influence and Persuasive Leadership Development, along with a certification in using neuroscience to deliver better business results. Johnny has been married to his college sweetheart, Susan, for 33 years and has 3 grown children, Bo, Bella, and Stone. They reside in Canton, Ohio, and Naples, Florida, with their 2 dogs, Ted and Luna May. Without further ado, Johnny.
Thank you. Thank you, John. So, the quality of your thoughts will determine your happiness. I'm going to just ask you to park that thought for a moment, and I'm going to come back and visit that in a little bit. But first, I want to thank Miami for bringing me in. Coming back here and coming home, literally, is really a gift and something that I'm, really honored to be back here. And just this campus, it's amazing. So soak it up, and I know that you all enjoy it, but it really gets more special the older you get and when you come back. This is an opportunity for me to be very thankful to come back, but in some respects, to know that your alma mater, when they think of somebody with mental health needs, that they reach out to you, is a little bit of a head scratcher for a second, because I kind of had some fun with it, saying, all right, so you all are calling me because you know that I struggle with mental health, and they've seen my social media, and I do struggle, and I'm going to talk to you pretty openly about that. So I applaud all of you for coming tonight, battling this rain, and being willing to be vulnerable and talk about a topic that many of us might go through, but we don't all really embrace that thought, and we're going to remove all those stigmas and those challenges with it. So as we get started, I want to introduce you to this guy. I always look for a way to connect with my audiences and find a way to find a connection. And so for this group, it's pretty easy. I went here, my wife went here. We have, strong affinity for Miami. We absolutely love this place. It's given us so much. And so I thought, if you can't connect to me in my message, maybe you can connect to him. So I'm going to talk to you about this guy. So this guy, first of all, his main priority was rocking that mullet. That is what, really drove me every day. And I can remember when I had that picture taken my freshman year, that's exactly what I was wearing. It was, bear with me on this, it was a Miami University football jersey made in the mid-'80s of the scratchiest material that would chafe and bother your skin. Big Miami logo on it, but it was a crop top, right? That's a great image. And then in the 80s, we wore small shorts. They were kind of short shorts. And I walked around here thinking that I had really figured out not only fashion, but a coolness factor. And thank goodness that's a headshot only. So it would have been pretty scary to reveal the crop top. One of the things you'll notice that's blacked out there is our social security numbers were on our IDs. So we were displaying that everywhere. Matter of fact, our grades were posted outside of the classroom by social security number. So everyone's full social, not just the last 4 digits, full social. It was there. You were here at the same time as me. That's true. And so, we didn't realize all the identity theft back then. And then there's my sticker. And every semester we got a new sticker, and that was for Harry's Dining Hall. I lived in Stanton, and so that was what allowed me to eat in one dining hall and one dining hall only. No matter where you were on campus in between, back in the 80s, you had to truck your way back there. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this guy as well. So around this time, when I started really, we're living on our own, it's new for all of us, and I found myself realizing that I had more thoughts than maybe some of my buddies did. I found myself burdened with thoughts that I didn't really know what to do with, thoughts that were coming in, and I wanted to push them out, but then they'd come back. I didn't really know what that was. We didn't really talk about mental health in the mid-'80s, And if we did, it was maybe depression. And so if I talked to some people about it, maybe even my own doctor, saying, Johnny, you're depressed. And I said, I'm not depressed. I'm not sad. I'm highly functioning. I'm moving around. I later in life had gone through some periods of depression, so I know what that feels like, and it wasn't what I had here, but it was just the stirring of anxiety. So this guy was struggling quite a bit with things that I noticed that my peers and my fraternity brothers and my buddies were not struggling with. Didn't know what to do with it. And so today, things have changed dramatically. And what we know is that through talking through it, through medication that I'm on today to deal with my anxiety and my OCD, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that. But there's a lot of tools that I need in my toolbox to deal with that. So medicine is just one piece. That's not all of it. So we're going to talk a little more there. Meditation helps me. Prayer helps me. Exercise. I'm crazy about that because I need to be physically moving and work off some of the angst that I'm feeling. So hitting the gym 5 days a week has been a priority of mine since I left here. I was telling the SAEs last night that where the SAE house is, our weightlifting club was on Western Campus. And we'd walk clear across campus to go there and think nothing of it at the time. And it was just great because that was the best gym that Miami had at the time. So this guy really struggled, and he didn't really know and understand why others didn't have the thoughts that I had. So we're going to lead you to a question that was asked to me a few years ago when I was talking to about 400 college seniors at another university. And one young man asked me a question that really stopped me in my tracks. And I really gave an answer off my mind quicker than my ability to process was really there. And he said to me, "What do you wish you knew when you were sitting in our seat?" And that question came quickly to me with a response that came out, and I said, "I wish I knew that life was hard, but that'll be okay." So when I was your age, that's really what I wish I knew, how hard life was going to be. And I had a great life up to that point. I had a great experience in college. And in some respects, I've had great times and rough times. I think life is hard. I didn't say that to discourage them, but I explained it to them in a way that it helps me mentally to understand that life can be hard, but we're going to be okay. So again, when we think about the quality of our thoughts and our happiness depending on that, we now have some ownership and responsibility that we can really hold on to something in our own power and control our thoughts. So let me tell you a little bit about why life was hard for me. A month before graduation, I, with my anxious mind, was nervous that I haven't met my wife yet, and I thought for sure I would meet her at Miami University. It was a month before our last fraternity party of the year, and I happened to meet Susan, and I showed the guys last night exactly where we sat on a windowsill inside the SAE house until 3 in the morning and talked, and I realized that I think I met my soulmate. Within a few years, by 23, we're getting married, and we were just crushing it in life as we thought. So when I was leaving Miami, the anxiety in me said that my senior year, I need a job for graduation. I don't need one job, I need a lot of job offers. So I set a goal that I needed 8 offers from all Big 8 accounting firms. I wanted 4 offers from banks, and I picked retail as another segment that I wanted 3 there. I wanted 15 job offers. And I got 15 job offers. So a plug to career services, because in the 80s you guys rocked it. I think you are still doing that today. A little plug there to continue to use career services because they provide so many amazing opportunities to you. I was wired that I had to have all that. You could probably see that there's a little something wrong with me already right there, that I was driven that hard. I meet Susan a month before graduation, and I ask her, "Do you have a job?" She says, "No." I said, "You've been looking for a job?" She said, no. I was thinking, this is never going to work out. Like, I thought I just found my soulmate, and we got to the job question, and I'm realizing that this girl, as amazing as she's been, how is she going to catch up to me because I'm pushing and going that hard? And what I didn't understand is her approach was exactly what I needed. Susan ended up getting a job a month after graduation. I was making a stellar $23,000 a year moving to downtown Chicago. Susan gets a job in the Midwest in Ohio, making $35,000 a year back then. Company car, better benefits, and just totally faced me with, you thought you had it all figured out, well, you didn't. This is another way to get to success. And I was so proud of her. She reached 6 figures of income before I did. Again, I was her biggest cheerleader and high-fiving her. It was awesome, and I started to understand that there's a different way to go through life other than my crazy intensity. And we were kind of balancing each other out. So we had it all. We were so focused on our careers. People knew that. But pretty quickly, at 24, 25 years old, we were ready to have kids. But that didn't seem to be in the cards for us. And we tried, and we tried, and we tried. And years went by. And we weren't telling anyone that we were trying to do this because we wanted to surprise, because our friends were surprising us with their pregnancies, and we would surprise them with ours. But they were then having their second pregnancy and their third pregnancy. And we were not able to share with them our news. So we worked really hard inside the medical community, and Susan eventually became pregnant. She became very pregnant with triplets, 2 boys and a girl. We were the happiest couple. We were not overwhelmed at all. We weren't afraid financially, how are we going to make this work? We weren't afraid of, with 2 careers, how are we going to make this work? We weren't afraid with any idea of being overwhelmed, being gifted 3 babies at once, like how we were going to do this. And our life path was set. And that was our destiny, to be parents of triplets. Nicholas, Mary, and Peter were born, and they passed away. They all passed away. And our lives changed. My worst fear that I had had before of bearing a child was becoming real 3 times over. I saw the pain and the agony in my wife, and there was nothing I could do to fix that. I realized that there were weight on us and heaviness on us that made getting out of bed extremely hard. We couldn't plan the funeral because it was too much, and so both of our moms, picked out the casket, went to the cemetery, picked out a grave, planned the funeral, and we were so sad for them that this is what their lives have come to. And not that we felt some responsibility in that, but it wasn't right. It wasn't right that these 2 amazing women were planning their grandchildren's funeral. And I remember being confused. I was confused every day because I just couldn't comprehend what had happened. And I watched other cars driving by when we were in the limo on the way to the funeral, and there's cars zipping by, and everyone's going about their life. And I'm thinking, stop. Like, our lives have just ended, and people are just going to work, and they're going to the grocery store. And I was processing these thoughts like, this just doesn't seem right. And so after the funeral, my wife and I would spend a lot of time at the cemetery to be close to our kids. And we'd go visit our friends and be at the hospital for them, and then we would go to the cemetery after they had their baby, and that was our reality, and we had to find some peace with it. We'd make deals with each other to stop going to the cemetery because we were doing it too much. We didn't think it was healthy. And I'd come home, on my way home from work, I was like, I'm just going to stop and see them. 10 minutes, Susan won't even notice that I'm a little late. And I'd get there, I'd get there and she was laying on the ground. And so when you see that kind of pain in someone that you love so much, you can imagine where your mind can go. So what do we need to do? We needed therapy. That was clear. That was obvious. And so we went into therapy. And through that process, there started to be light that was shown. And our psychologist, which Dr. Barb Fortes, Barb as she became known to us, became one of our dearest friends. She wrote the afterword to my book, and she outlines in the afterword all of the psychological principles in cognitive behavioral therapy that she taught us that saved our lives. It saved our marriage. It made us better people. And so with that therapy, we were able to start to learn. And I was going through the motions. We were learning box breathing when we were kind of feeling panicky. We were learning breathing techniques and other cognitive behavioral methods that was going to help us. But I was really remained firm that people telling me that I needed to let go of Nicholas, Mary, and Peter because they would see that I was struggling, and even have a relative that questioned me at work, oh, you're still struggling with that. You know, it's been 6 months. Yeah, it's been 29 years. I'm still struggling with that. And so I said to Barb one day in session, I said, Barb, I'm not going to let go of Nicholas, Mary, and Peter. I won't do it. I refuse to do it. I'm their dad, and I'm holding on. And if it takes me down, it might take me down, but I'm not letting go. And Barb introduced a reframing technique that changed my life. And I ask you to embrace this thought. She said to me, Johnny, you don't have to let go of Nicholas, Mary, and Peter. You can hold on to them and hold them in your heart as tight as you ever imagined. But you have to let go of the dreams that you had for them in this life. Parenting them, school events, sporting activities, their weddings, those things aren't happening. But you can hold on to them. And so I started thinking about that if I can hold on to them, I can maybe make this work to be their dad and them not physically here and have a relationship with them. So reframing techniques really work to put you from a dark place to a brighter place. And the more that I went through with this, I started thinking that, you know, their life cannot be a tragedy in my life. That's felt disrespectful. That my kids, when they're referenced, are this dark subject that people want to stay away from. And people don't want to acknowledge them to me or talk to me. What's going to happen with their first birthday? How are we going to celebrate that? And so I started to realize that I not only needed to deal with these emotions and process them and emerge through the pain, as the subtitle of my book says, The Power of Hope, Emerging Through Pain. And the most important line is learning to live with gratitude. And that's what I was committed to doing. That's what Susan was committed to doing, is to be grateful for the time that they were alive. You see, we were the happiest people in that hospital the time that they lived. Even after they died and they took their last breaths and closed their eyes, and we held them and kept changing them back and forth with moving 3 babies between the 2 of us, we were genuinely happy. We were a family of 5. This is what we dreamed of for years, and we got to this place. So we weren't going to let that go casually as, you know, just this awful event. It was everything to us. So then I started thinking, maybe I could be super grateful for that night. Maybe that night could be changing for me in every way possible to live a happier life and be happier. And so from that became a journey for both of us to be able to honor them in a different way and not allowing their life to be this tragic event that happened to us, but rather one of the greatest blessings that we had, because I got to be Nicholas, Mary, and Peter's dad, and I still am. Now, the principle of more. We always want more, right? We want more money, we want more friends, we want more likes, we want more food, we want more pleasure, we always want more. I was confronted with a challenge of saying, can one day be enough? Or Johnny, do you need 2 days? Do you need 5 years? What point will you just be thankful that you had this experience that could be life-changing for the better and not only for the worse? Because naturally, everyone wanted to go to the worst. I did. I had a hard time getting out of bed after the funeral. But that's not enough. I didn't want at 28 years old to live my life feeling cheated, to feel that my wife was cheated. And so one of the reasons I wrote this book is because I want all of you and anyone who reads this book to know the amazing woman that I'm married to know the gift in my life of that person who I thought I needed to catch her up to my speed so that she can live a productive life. And I realized that when I was at my darkest time, Susan's balance, when she was at her darkest time, was a place that I wanted to get up to her speed. And she changed me for every way possible to the better. And I wanted to write this book for all of you that will be along the journey, that have friends going through tough times, whether it's divorce or an engagement breaking up or breaking up with your boyfriend or girlfriend or not getting the job that you want. The book was written to create hope for you to help people along the road in the journey, because that's one of the greatest blessings that we had, is our family and friends that were so good to us. They taught me how to love unconditionally, because for a long time it was not fun being friends with us. It was not fun at all. I'll save the rest for the book because there's so many other challenging things that happened. But it's when I started to realize that my happiness was dependent on the quality of my thoughts. And I'd love to say that I created that quote. But your happiness is dependent on the quality of your thoughts is a quote from the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius from the year 161. For 2,000 years, we've been struggling with managing our thoughts and our happiness. For 2,000 years. So any of us that have mental health challenges, we're not alone in that. And our ancestors, for 2,000 years, a Roman emperor literally told his people, your happiness depends on the quality of your thoughts. And the reason why that is because neuroscience tells us that if we program positive thoughts in our minds, it will literally change in our mind so that we start seeing positive in things, if we start feeling that way. So guys, now I'm getting encouraged. I'm realizing that, hey, this was awful, but now once I was that low, I started seeing how high I could get and how much better life can be with this experience now to really reset what happiness looks like. I could be a better father in the future if we could ever be granted kids. I could be a better husband. I could be a better leader at work. And this totally changed my philosophy. I was going through a really rough time in business back in 2008, 2009. And it was, the housing market crashed and it affected every industry. And we had a workforce that we had to do a major reduction of 1,000 people. And as I would give orders of reductions to my team of quantities that we needed to hit, and there was another 100 or 300 people and those kinds of things, I was at a really dark place. And I thought, wait a minute, I've already figured this stuff out. I could focus on the positive. I could be living in gratitude. Why am I struggling so much? This is just work. It's business. We have to do those things. But as a guy with anxiety, I was worrying about the people going home and having to tell their husband, wife, their kids that they lost their job. And it was a decision that I made. And so I read the book, The 100 Happiest People. And researchers went out to find the 100 happiest people in the world. And those people came from rich people to poor people, to healthy people to sick people, young, old, every different spectrum across the world, and they found the 100 happiest people. And that's pretty encouraging to think like They found them, and then, guys, get this. They had one trait in common that was universal across all of these 100 happy people. Dying, young, old, rich, poor, all these things, they had one trait in common. And that one trait was, again, a life-changing thought for me. And that trait was that they did not believe everything that they thought. Let me say that again. Don't believe everything that you think. So when I started to realize that every thought that I had, I didn't have to, in my mind, process that. Where did this thought come from? Why do I feel this way? What am I going to do with it? Is it going to make me feel happy? Is it going to make me feel sad? Is it going to make me angry? Is it going to make me want to act out? Where did this come from? Why do I feel this way? My mind would go through all those things. And the beautiful thing of my wife is she would be like, why are you spending any time on that thought? And I was like, it's that simple for you, isn't it? And she was like, it is, let it go. I'm like, I can't let it go. Why can't you let it go? Because I have this thought and I got to figure out why I have it. I got to process it. I got to do something with it. And for some reason, maybe because I'm so impressed with myself, because I thought it was true. And then I had to believe myself. And the downside of that is getting to the point where you realize that I don't have any facts to support what I'm saying, what I'm thinking. Yet I'm putting all this energy into it. So that was another tool that I learned in dealing with my mental health, that there are thoughts that I have that I can literally let go. Because a really important rule of life is that if you have a challenge and you can do something about it, change it, fix it. And if you can't, if there's nothing that can be changed, then you need to let it go. I don't like letting stuff go. I want to hold on to it, and I want to wrestle with it. And my wife, again, this model of mental health to me that has balanced me for 35 years now, is able to say, well, that's a waste of your time. And it's that simple for her. It's that hard for me. So we have to work towards that. You know, there's a Chinese proverb that says, the man who blames others has a long way to go. The man who blames himself is halfway there. And the man who blames no one is already there. And so, again, a reframing thought to say blame. We want to take these bad feelings that we have or these bad thoughts, and then we want to blame someone else for instilling them in us and creating a challenge. And I'm going to challenge you guys tonight to think about having control of your thoughts and reframing thoughts and knowing when you need to let a thought go. Because life can be hard. Even a very blessed life can be hard. And so you need to always realize the energy that you have each day to manage your thoughts. One of the things that we heard most common in the receiving line at the kid's funeral, and that we heard so often after, was, Johnny, I'm sure you're wondering, why me? That age-old question, why me? God, why did this happen to me? Asking friends, why does this happen to me? And I said, I didn't have time to explain it because there were so many people in the receiving line, but I said, no, not at all. Why not me? When something bad happens in your life, what energy is there and value to saying, why me? Bad things happen to good people all the time. Everyone has their struggles. Everyone has their stuff. So you could say that we entered into therapy maybe as sophomores and not freshmen because my wife and I didn't question why us. Maybe it was our turn. Maybe we live in a world with free will and things just happen. And this was ours. So I ask you to not fall into the why me trap. That really kind of society always looking for blame and putting it out there that this is the source of your problems and, oh, why me? Why does this have to happen? One of the chapters in the book is entitled, Why Not Me? And that's really how we approached the hardships in our life. So where does this leave me right now? I'm 57 years old. I've been through plenty of therapy. I've tried plenty of medications. And I still have anxiety. And I still have OCD. Now, there's all different types of OCD. I'll admit that I like things really clean, but it's not to, a level that is problematic. But what gets me in my OCD is the thoughts. So I don't have the compulsive actions, I have the obsessive thoughts. So it gets on a loop, and I just can't stop it. Does anyone in here have the feeling that you get a thought and you can't let it go? Okay. Doesn't mean you have OCD. But that is a clue that you are falling into thought patterns and you're not letting them go, and that you need some reframing techniques, you need some tools to use to let those go. And I would recommend that you go to the services that are available here on campus that John was talking about. What a gift that you have. I don't even know if we had that here in 1984 to 1988, but boy, I should have been there. If I knew better to go, if there were events like this that would tell me, oh, wait a minute, that's me doing that a little bit. Use those services. They're available to you. Also want to tell you that every time that you're nervous does not mean that you have anxiety. If you get stressed before finals, that's normal. They're finals. They're hard. It's a lot of information. They have a big impact on your grade. That's all normal. Every time you're sad doesn't mean you have depression. I'm not discounting those emotions. I'm just saying that they're real life emotions. We all have those. And for me, I would tell you that what I've done with my anxiety is I've used it now as a superpower in my life. And through meditation and prayer and exercise and medicine, I still have it. But I use it as a way to help me in life. Because I love to look 4 to 5 chess moves out in business and in relationships, in all kind of topics, in parenting. And I do that because I'm anxious that if in step 4 out there, 4 chess moves out, if I don't have a plan, I don't want to be caught there without a plan and be surprised in a deer in headlights. So it makes me more thoughtful. I love that about my anxiety. My wife likes it as well because I am very thoughtful, because I think about people's feelings a lot, and so maybe a little more than a normal man, maybe in some cases far too much, but it ultimately works out. So I want you to have balance there, that you don't need a label on yourself to say, because I have a lot of thoughts, that means I have anxiety. It might just be you're learning and you're getting to know yourself. Because I would tell you guys that the relationship I have with myself for 57 years is very complicated. And in a physical injury, and I've had those, I tore my rotator cuff boxing, and it was something there that it's like, okay, what do I have to do? And I have to heal, and I happen to do platelets and stem cell for my spine, and did that instead of surgery. Worked, by the way. A little plug for a different approach to medicine. But it didn't require a lot of thought. I just had to go through it. But the mental health issues, I'm still dealing with some of the same stuff that I solved yesterday, that I solved this morning. That's what mental health struggles are, and you got to use the resources that are available to you. So I'm going to conclude with one last statement. This is what extreme anxiety looks like in OCD. And I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Blazer off.
It's a little warm up here.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
What's up?
I didn't do this. So I didn't finish the story a little bit. So that's what ended up happening when I did let go a little bit. So the boy on the far left with my wife's there in the black and white. We adopted our son, Bo. He was born 9 months to the day that Nicholas, Mary, and Peter died, and had a different plan for us. God did, and so that's our son, Bo. And then we had 2 very surprising pregnancies within about a year and a half with Bella and Stone. And so that's the new family of 5. Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Steve Large. I work in the Division of Student Life, and I have some questions for you, Johnny, if you're cool with that.
I am. Let's go.
For one, gratitude. You talked about gratitude, so I want to extend that to you. You are a gift. You're a gift to this audience. You're a gift to the students you met with last night, to the different classrooms that you've been connecting with today. Your story is so powerful, and I lost count of the times that I got goosebumps while listening to you. So I don't know if you could see John and I, but we were bobbleheads back there, nodding our heads, as with all the different things you were saying. So thank you truly for being here. One thing when I was reading your book, I think it was in the 2nd chapter, but you talked about the relief that came when you finally revealed the secret that you and Susan have been carrying around the difficulty with fertility and having children, and just how painful of a process that was to carry that secret. And I'm guessing that there's probably a lot of folks in this room right now that are carrying secrets. And so what would you say to them?
I love that question, Steve. I would say that, understand why you think your secret needs to stay that way. Now, we had a master plan for us, and it's because it could be a little theatrical, so I kind of imagined this big explosive reveal that we were pregnant, and, my wife's kind of like, we don't need all that, and I was like, no, let's, make this really fun. So I had these big thoughts about it. Then it was a little contrarian for me to, people were thinking that we were just focused on money and that we were, so into our careers that we weren't willing to have kids, and Susan was, that woman that was just, financially driven and focused as if she couldn't be both, that and want to be a mom at the same time. And so then it was a little bit, we had a little chip that, we're just gonna, okay, you can hold that against us if that's what you're thinking. But we didn't really want to just talk about it. We didn't want to make it a big thing. Problem was, it was a big thing. And after a few years of that, we were out of excuses of hiding it. So we decided to let the secret out. And with that, there was a little bit of weight that was relieved with that. But, a lot of times we have secrets because we're ashamed. And that's, I think, probably one of the biggest reasons. It's so interesting that as open as I am, Miami did a beautiful job of putting together that clip that some of you might have seen on Instagram or TikTok, and they asked me to do some voiceovers on some pictures, and they put a great collage together. I got a text from my mom that I saw. My mom's 85, still works 6 days a week, but in a family business, and I was coming over and I saw a text from my mom, and it said, "I love you. I'm so sorry that Miami was that hard for you. I never knew that." And I thought, I said, "Oh, Mama, Miami was awesome. It was great. It was just, I'm reflecting on a piece of it." But there were some secrets there because I didn't tell my mom and my dad and my sisters that I was struggling emotionally, trying to figure out myself. Like, my other buddies didn't have the thoughts that I was having. And I'd talk to them. They were great people. I'd talk to them about it a little bit, but they were like, "Dude, that's weird. Like, why are you worrying about if you're going to find someone, and get married? We're 20. You've got time." And I didn't have time because my goal is I had to be married at 23. So I'm like, I'm running out of time. I set that goal. We had to be done having kids by the time I was 30. Nicholas, Mary, and Peter were born when we were 28. Thrown off my schedule, all those things, maybe a little OCD in me. So, it was made me a little sad that, my mom felt badly about that, and as open as I've been, but I don't think she knew that it went back to the time I was here.
Thank you. And even listening to your response there, I was picking up on who's the secret serving? Is it serving you or others, and how is it serving you? But I also picked up on expectations. And you just seem like you're such a pro now at managing expectations that you're creating for yourself or that others are creating for you. There's actually a quote in the book that I starred. As the universe would have it, when you desperately want something you were drawn to, you notice that your dream is actualized through the lives of others even more. So basically, when you're so desperately and hungry for something, you're going to start seeing it in everyone else, and then that can lead to your own feelings of insecurity or whatever it might be. But how have you learned to manage expectations?
So I'm a big believer in setting expectations. And so I do a lot of talking about mindfulness. And here's a trick that I use with mindfulness that helps me set expectations. So every doorway that I walk through, call it a threshold, that I need to know what are the expectations of me from others when I walk through that doorway. So Steve, I want to know how I need to perform and who I need to be when I transition from, earlier today with the academic advisors to now today with the students, and ensuring that I'm delivering on what Miami wanted me to do and what they brought me here to do. And so I use mindfulness techniques, and the physical threshold of a doorway helps me be mindful to know that I have expectations now to manage. And those expectations are on my own actions on how am I going to act in that setting? How am I going to serve those people? I'm a believer in servant leadership, and so it's very important to me that you all know that what I came here to do tonight was to serve you. I wanted to give life experiences and help you in your young lives to be at a position so that you can be prepared. I'm not trying to freak you out and make you sad that life is hard and my title makes you want to run away. I'm doing it from a perspective of you saying that, okay, this is a little hard, but I got this. And maybe I don't have it quite completely, but Miami's got resources here for me to use. And that, like I had Barb teaching me reframing techniques, Stephen John's team can do those same things for you. And so then you can have it. And so that is where expectations for me, and again, it's my anxiety, because if I go through that threshold and I don't perform, I'm going to feel really bad about that. So it's a superpower. It's worked for me.
It is a superpower, and you have performed. So whatever that bully up there in your brain is telling you about the expectations for your time here, you have far exceeded it, truly. I was thinking about Barb. What a fantastic psychologist. And so I'm curious what that process was for you. You talked about that really powerful moment that you had when you saw Susan at your children's grave, and that sort of really stirred you to act. What was that like starting therapy for you as someone that it sounds like had not been in therapy? Was it exciting? Was it scary? And I'm particularly asking because for those that might be curious about dipping their toes in therapy waters, what would you say to them, given your own experience?
I'd say just jump right in.
Yeah?
Jump in, because you're going to be dealing with a professional on the other side that is interested in welcoming to hear your thoughts. See, what I did wrong, I think, for a while is I tried to get validation for my thoughts or try to compare myself to my buddies, that I was going to the wrong people for validation. I was, looking at them as if they need to understand me. They need to explain to me why I'm this way and why it's okay or not okay. They weren't equipped to do that. I wasn't equipped to do that. And I was putting them in a place where that was too much. And so when we went to Barb, we were clearly broken enough that it help.
Yeah.
Just help us. And it never fractured our relationship either. I've learned to be bold in life, and a couple was very bold. The night before the funeral, this couple that we did not know well, they were members at the same country club. We kind of knew them. And he was a doctor, actually, that did a surgery on me. And they showed up at our house unannounced the night before the funeral. And our family had done a great job, and our closest friends, of keeping everyone away from us, away from the hospital, away from our house, and that the funeral was the time that we needed time to get there. Susan needed time to heal and after, a tough delivery and those things. And so this couple showed up at our house, and I answered the door and was shocked to see them because I wouldn't have expected them to be there. And they said, we need to talk to you. We ask if we can come in, but it's important. So, being gracious, I say, of course, come in. And they said, our baby died at a week old. And what we're concerned about for you and Susan right now is your marriage. So we're going to ask you to start grieving together every day from day one. Don't grieve this way. And as many couples can. And so they explained that to us. And, as we held our hands, Susan and I were sitting there, and they're on the couch opposite of us, and we see them holding their hands, and they're probably my age now. And they were holding so tight. And there was something about that we wanted that in our future 30 years from now. And so they imparted that wisdom, and, my friends and even my wife at time will be like, Johnny, I can't believe you're going to say that to somebody about X. And I'm like, it's on my heart, it's coming out. Yeah. And that couple did that for us. And, I do it with respect and balance and grace and all those things. But when they did that, it showed me this is how you reach out and help people. And they did something pretty gutsy that people could have been angry at them for coming. We could have thrown them out, all those things. And they were a gift.
How beautiful. And the beauty in that is that we all hold that capacity and power to be bold, be gutsy, speak from our heart, and perhaps really impact someone's life when we may not even realize that we're doing it, just like how they did for you.
That's right.
I have so many more questions. I also want to make sure we have a little bit of time for audience questions. But I do want to talk about grief. That's a universal experience that I'm sure many of us in the room have experienced or we are perhaps experiencing currently. And so when I forget what chapter it was, but I wrote it down because I thought it was beautiful how you sort of talked about your approach to grief, that it was a prayer for selflessness and that to not suppress the flood of emotions. And so when you think about your own experience of grief, how might you describe how you've managed it, and thoughts for our friends in the audience that might be grieving themselves?
All right, so my approach to this is a little funky. So, John and Steve, you might want to rip away my special interest certification that I have as a psychology guy from Miami University. So when my dad died, I was in my 30s, and my dad, spoke at the triplets' funeral and delivered the eulogy, and he was just everything to me. And, my best friend, my business partner, just an amazing guy. And when he died, I was destroyed and died of cancer. And I was, able to be there with him and help him and be there with him and watch him take his last breaths. And after I was struggling so hard and that's what I mentioned, I needed depression because about 9 months in, I realized I needed medicine for depression because I called myself a functioning depressant, like a functioning alcoholic, where I was still coaching the kids, coaching, in football season and baseball season, and still leading the company and still being a faith leader at church and, doing all these things, but I went back to a baseline emotion of sadness. Then I started thinking, when I started feeling better, that I missed something. I missed being in that, and it took about 3 years. And about 3 years in, I could start talking about my dad without crying. And I started thinking, this doesn't feel as good. I liked it better when I thought of him and it brought me to tears because he was closer to me then. And so then I started thinking, like, why am I thinking that way? And what I landed on was this, that I was so blessed to have a dad that was that good and that loving and taught me right from wrong and work ethic and built an amazing life when his parents immigrated here from Italy. And I thought, that's why it hurts so much, is because the love was so deep. So it should hurt that much. This is what I'm supposed to feel. And then I got a little sad when I wasn't feeling it as much because then I realized it's because I'm used to him being gone every day. And now that it's been nearly 20 years, I could talk about it without crying because I have so much of my life without him in it and him missing so much. And so I miss those periods of just gut-wrenching sadness because I felt a closer connection to him, and then I just found gratitude. So my view of grief is when I'm feeling so sad and that low and down, I just think, Johnny, you're one lucky son of a gun because you had something so great that is now gone that you miss it that much more. And I'll tell you what, I'll sign up for that amount of love and connection 100 times over, even if it only lasted to my 30s. I'll take that versus not having that with my dad.
Well said. Beautiful. If you're okay with it, for maybe to transition to a few questions that our audience might have. I think we have some USEF volunteers. They're going to have microphones around. So if anyone has a question for Johnny, feel free to raise your hand, and then hopefully we'll have, or we don't have student volunteers. We're just going to, just raise your hand if you have a question for Johnny. Yeah, or you can just come to one of these two mics. That's perfect. Excellent. You want to be...
All right, here comes someone.
There we go.
Thank you. Always need that first one.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Hi there. I just want to say thank you again for coming out here today. And I want to ask, I feel like empathy is a valuable thing. But as an empathetic person, how did you maintain yourself while going through situations like this and not lose sight of being a positive, empathetic person to other people?
That's really, really a good question. So you're empathic yourself to even have that question, right, in your mind, because there is a balance, right, where, when you feel deeply, the gift that is for me with my anxiety is that I do feel deeply. And then a little bit of the curse is when you feel so much, it could bring you down, right? And so that's reframing of thoughts. That's that cognitive behavioral technique where I could now see my reframing of feeling down and sad for somebody to say, you're using the gifts and qualities that you were given. Go down there, be there, stay there with them, but then you're called to go move up and move on and go help someone else. And so, it's something that you say, you got to be careful of the person that's drowning, that they don't pull you in with them, right? And so when you feel deeply, when you're empathetic and you can identify with other people's feelings, be careful of that line being crossed where they're pulling you down. Go there, go down with them on your own accord so that you can then pull back and then be balanced and live your life as well. Because we can't fix everything for everyone, and certainly in our life, there wasn't really many people can do. That's why our friends said, and the book goes on to, there's 13 different kids that came in and out of our lives. And those three, if I remember correctly, are 10, 12, and 13. So there's 10 other ones, that came in and out of our lives. And our friends were there for us being empathic. But they had to be parents to their own kids, right? And so you got to find that balance.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Who else has a question or a comment? Thank you.
Hey, so I just want to ask, when you have people in your life who you feel like have wronged you or have hurt people close to you, how do you sort of deal with that and those feelings towards those other people?
Okay, love that. So forgiveness, right? Forgiveness is something that I think we're all told to practice. But there is the other side of forgiveness that I want to talk to you about. I would tell you that if someone's wronged you, for you, I want you to forgive them. Forgiveness is something that really serves ourselves so that we can move forward and not carry that anger and that resentment around in our heart. But just because you forgive someone, it doesn't mean that you have to go back into a relationship with them. So you could be prudent and smart in your own lives to say, I forgive you, but I'm going to choose to make other choices of friendships and people that I want to spend time with, and that could even include family members. And I'm going to wish you well in your journey, And I genuinely do wish you well, not just saying it with your fingers crossed and that you hope the bus comes by and, right? We're not playing those games because you genuinely want to have a purity in your heart to say, I want good things for you. But I want to be really far away when those good things happen. And that's okay. So I think oftentimes that we think forgiveness means that somebody's got to hurt us and then we got to go back and let them do it again and again, and they're going to apologize and we're going to forgive them, and there's a continuous loop. I'm not saying that everyone that you offer forgiveness to means you have to get out of their life. But if you know it's that extreme case that they continue to hurt you, offer the forgiveness and then find other good people around you.
Well said. Other questions or comments? Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to say thanks for opening up to all of us today. I know that that's not an easy thing to do. With my own life and mental health, I've taken it upon myself to really make sure to make it a priority to be open with friends, family, peers, colleagues about it, because you really never know who you're talking to, and that's of course something that you're very familiar with. I was wondering if you had any advice for me or anyone else in the room who makes that a priority, and two things necessarily. When is it just knowing when you're making it clear that you're being there for someone as a friend by speaking on your own experiences and your own knowledge on the subject without making it about yourself. And while also knowing when someone is going to be receptive to you opening up about your mental health to them, and knowing that you're there if you ever need it, but it's not meant to be something that's going to bog down the conversation. But I've been there. If you're there, you can talk to me. Like, how do you best advise us as college students to approach those conversations with our friends? Thank you.
All right. First of all, you said it pretty well yourself, that I've been there, and I'm here if you need to talk. One of the things that, kind of trauma dumping, where we have, all this that we are carrying, and I had to watch this with myself, that I wasn't looking for every relationship that I had, searching for that person that was going to be able to be my savior and solve problems for me. And because I do share, and I'm very comfortable sharing, my wife might say that I overshare. That's okay. But I've had to find that balance. And so one of the things by being open, as I am on my social media, and my handle at Johnny Sirpilla, I've really opened up a lot. And so many people are like, I never would have thought that about you, or I've watched your career for 30 years, I never knew that you were going through those things. That's okay. I didn't need to show it to everyone. So I would say that, be real and honest in the appropriate times. When there's a joyous, happy occasion and you're feeling off, be respectful of the energy in the room to not bring everyone down because you're down. And if you can't manage that, because that's hard to do sometimes if you're really in a dark place, then you shouldn't be at the birthday party. And that's okay, because you're going to have to take care of yourself. You don't need to feel guilty about that. And maybe be thankful that, the other people should be thankful then that, you chose not to go, because you would have likely brought it down. So be selective in the times that you do it. Be selective in who you do it with. I'm not a fan of someone doing it, and I've seen this used before, where they use it as a way to create a connection with someone. I'd rather connections be more genuine and real, and not the issue used as a way to connect, but allow issues that we share that are organically and naturally revealed to be a connecting point for us. So I'm not saying that, the death of our children would not be something that I would bring up to somebody else if they lost a child, and so that we can share and go together. A matter of fact, I'll give you an example of that, of trying to not make it all about me, but with a friend of mine I just met her a few years ago at a United Way function. And I remember it was when she was introduced to me, her new boyfriend that I've known said, Johnny, you might remember that in the paper a few years ago, her 9-year-old son died in his sleep. Not a sick boy, had a bad heart, they didn't know. He didn't wake up the next morning for school. And so he opened that up in the conversation. She and I started talking. I needed to make it about me for a moment because I wanted to connect with her. And so I said to her, I'm so sorry for your loss. We've lost 2 sons and a daughter. And, I'd love to hear about James. And tell me how great it was to be James' mom for 9 years. And so I changed the narrative of that conversation. Of course, I offered my sympathy. But then we were at a function and at an event, and I didn't want to bring her down, but we were introduced to this conversation together, and I wasn't going to ignore it. So I didn't have 9 years with my kids, and so I wanted to hear what her 9 years were like. And when I said to her, tell me how awesome it was to be James' mom for 9 years, her smile filled this room. It was so incredible. And I looked at her and I said, doesn't that feel great to feel so good about the gift that he was to be your son? And so she and I have formed, that bonded us together. And she's come to me for some other advice, and we can really connect. So, you find the appropriate way to do that. Thank you for that question.
I think I saw a couple hands over here if someone wants to come up.
All right, I hope you can hear me okay. This is
Yes.
a little higher, but it will just a trick. All right, so firstly, I really gotta say a huge thank you for being here, and then just share about your story. I would say, that is really a lot for us to just to process pretty much. It seems like, it's definitely very difficult, to navigate through all those information. I would say it's it's so I'm literally at a loss of word right now. It is very motivational, and then very encouraging, but also very sad. I was literally about to cry when I was in the audience. But anyway, so after looking through the story, I realized that you really discover signs of reaching out for help to the therapist and stuff like that. So and then I would say that's a very great realization after the whole entire problem happens, which I'm not gonna repeat again. So basically, I'm wondering. So do you think for student and then people in this room right now, what do you think would be a sign for us that we can reach out to seek for
A sign
support?
when you need to reach out?
Yeah, a sign that we need to. Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's the question.
All right, thank you. First, thank you for your kind comments and validating my experience. And so thank you. That was kind of you to say that. So I think that I love the question of when do you know when to reach out? When is it time? When do you say and look in the mirror that the shift is from I've got this to I don't got this? And when is that time? And so I think it's different for all of us. There's not one universal time that's hit. But I think I would say this, and both of you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know for me it's the shade of darkness of my thoughts that tell me I think we're going a little too far off the deep end. I really came to understand my anxiety through my daughter Bella, and unfortunately for Bella, she's wired exactly like me. And I'll even give a shout out to Bella for anyone in here struggle with perfectionism. Is that a thing for that arm went up fast? That's awesome. I'm right there with you. I'm high-fiving you in that. But my daughter's website, bellasirpilla.com, she has a talk on there that she did to about 300 women, and she's out doing public speaking now on mental health. She's 26, and she calls herself a recovering perfectionist. And so I'd encourage you to go watch that and watch my daughter's vulnerability and honesty in the way that she talks about her struggles and what she's gone through, and truly how being a perfectionist literally broke her to a point of crumbling and being a shell of her former self. And so when we see some of those signs coming is when we need to reach out for help. Bella was late in doing that, and it made her recovery back much, much harder. And so she kept fighting the questions in her mind that were coming up on career choice and going on to dental school and all these things, but she had a goal and she had a path and she had to reach it, and she broke. And so she ignored all of those signs. And because she's so put together, we didn't know that she was going through that. And we talk a ton. You can see I talk a lot. Imagine the girl version of me. I mean, she talks a lot. Her brothers would say when she was little, can time out, so can we talk some at dinner? So we talk a lot in our house, and we miss those signs. So that's what I would tell you. Okay, your question.
This will probably be our last question from the audience. Okay.
Hi. Again, thank you for coming. This has all been really inspiring. In terms of especially your daughter's most recent story, but also I liked your point about forgiveness, and I'd like to switch the focus to, I guess, how do you forgive yourself when Bella was battling with those thoughts, when you held yourselves these high, maybe even unrealistic goals at Miami? How do you now forgive yourself or work through forgiving yourself?
The question of the year for me, the question of the decade for me. So self-forgiveness is one of the challenges. When I said earlier that I have a complicated relationship with myself, it is largely driven on my problem to forgive myself. So, back when I was in college here, we didn't use the term self-talk, but my self-talk was pretty bad. When you look at the one, and I specifically sent it was a photo that was used when I was up for Homecoming King, and we had to have like our resume on there. And Max, I sent it over to you, and if you read that, and my kids have read it, and I forgot all this stuff, but that I did. And I don't say this to self-praise, I say it to really more of self-criticism, because it was president, treasurer, outstanding senior, outstanding rush recruiter, outstanding academic, all these different things in this office and that office and all this stuff. And I read that now, and I was like, why was I so hard on myself in college? Why did I not forgive? Why didn't I give myself more graces and more high fives to be like, Johnny, I think you're crushing this college thing. This is working out okay for you. My mind wasn't wired that way. And so back then we didn't use the term self-talk, but what I've said to Bella over the years is if your self-talk, which is basically the thoughts in your head, if you find that you're saying you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not tall enough, you're not thin enough, you're not generous enough, you're all those things, and when you find yourself saying those things to yourself, if you had a friend in your life that I walked up to you and I said, I don't think you're tall enough. I don't think you're thoughtful enough. I don't think you're smart enough. How many things would I have to say to you before you push me out of the way and, right? You wouldn't tolerate it, would you? But with ourselves, we seem to tolerate that. We seem to allow ourselves to just punch after punch after punch. And the problem is when you have those thoughts going, you get on that hamster wheel and you don't even realize that it's that simple just to jump off the wheel. The wheel will stop when the hamster gets off. But as the hamster keeps running, you don't get off. And so for me, in the 80s, we didn't talk about self-talk. And I find myself going down rabbit holes, and then I'm like, oh, you're here again. You've been here 72,000 times, and you've walked your way out of this. How did you let yourself get there again? And so forgiveness is something that is, self-forgiveness is really hard, especially as a parent. I can tell you, I'm going to speak for all of your parents, because if they are as imperfect as my wife and I are as parents, there's things that I would undo in a second. Bella's perfectionism, unfortunately, I, as her biggest fan, and loving the perfectness that she was, and encouraging it with every A on the report card, and all of those validations, and that's my Bella. She's my perfectionist, and those things that I said that I was really building up this mountain that she was going to eventually fall off of, and I did it in a way of showing love and appreciation for who she was. And I really hurt her in a lot of that. And so finding forgiveness is really the first place that you got to start. I told you about forgiving others. And so for me, I have apologized to Bella for the role that I played. I never pushed Bella because she was on the same edge of the mountain that I was on. So no one could ever push me. So I never pushed her, but I kept validating her. Every time she overachieved, I was the first one there slapping the high fives, and you know, I added to that. So I would ask you to be much kinder to yourself than I've been for the last 57 years. And I'm going to work in as many years as God gives me left to continue to be better to myself and realize that I'm really not there for my family, for my colleagues, for my friends fully when I treat myself poorly. Thanks for that question.
Before we wrap this portion up, I was just thinking, you know, what are sort of the core takeaway messages from this evening, from your talk and from this time that we've had together? And I think what's standing out for me is this idea of gratitude and skewing towards gratitude whenever possible, perspective and trying to, you know, maintain perspective, and then being your own best friend and being good friends to others as well. All of that is necessarily, it's not as always easy as it sounds, but yet we have that power to do those things.
We do.
And you are, you know, an example of that right here in your story. Just forever grateful for the time you spent with us tonight, yesterday on campus. You have changed folks' lives on this campus. So, yeah. The next portion of the evening then is we have some refreshments. I'm assuming you'll be milling around if folks want to talk to you. We also have free copies of Johnny's book as well over here at our MUSEF. I don't know how many copies are left, so if you want one, go over and get it. And let's give Johnny a huge round of applause.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. That was great.
Yeah.